Have you ever heard of the reputation of Dark Souls and thought, that's too much for me, I don't need that kind of stress in my life, or I don't want to spend hours learning the game to see if I'll even like it? Then this video was made for you. I thought the exact same thing when I started, but I was totally wrong in assuming I'll feel a specific way. I think Dark Souls gets far too much credit as a skill test of a game, and I don't think it was made with hardcore gamers in mind. It was created for an interesting, terrifying, beautiful, and mysterious experience. Everyone should try Dark Souls. I jotted the idea for this video down back in halfway through 2022. I was watching my buddy play Dark Souls for the first time, and he reminded me of what I was thinking when I went through the same problems. I just fell in love with the game again. I started looking up other people's first time playthroughs to get more of it, because I'll never play Dark Souls again for the first time, and that really is the best part of playing these games. Demon Souls, the first venture into what will become the Souls genre, was a massive failure in Japan. Far too difficult, obtuse game design, strange button layout, no pausing, confusing story, and unforgiving gameplay. It also did surprisingly well in the West, with unique gameplay, dark fantasy aesthetics, atmospheric exploration, mysterious and well-connected story, and again, unforgiving gameplay. It was a fresh contrast to the samey titles of the same year. Success was unexpected from FromSoft. They didn't expect much from this game, directed by some random account manager turned game director. Bandai Namco quickly partnered with the FromSoft team to publish the Dark Souls series. Streamers, gaming YouTubers, Let's Players they were called at the time, can massively boost a game's popularity. It's no secret that if someone like Markiplier had a fun time playing your game, you were about to get a huge influx of new and impressionable young people. It's similar to how horror games are easy to react to, that made for easy thumbnails, easy videos, massive numbers, in a world where games like Cat Mario, I Wanna Be the Guy Gaiden, and Happy Wheels were massively popular for being games that just made YouTubers die and scream, or being difficult for the sake of being difficult. Of course some people are going to mistake this other viral video game for something similar if they don't sit down and play it themselves. It also must feel really fucking good for people who have completed Demon and Dark Souls, having those online worship it as the holy grail of skill testing, pushing that message that Dark Souls is the true gamer's game, the elite, the salty spittoon, is really not all that. It's hard, but what I mean to say, it's so much more than that. I want to shed light on it because I believe everyone should play Dark Souls. Difficulty is obviously the hottest topic and probably the biggest barrier to entry. People arguing that the difficulty is unnecessary and others saying it is essential to the experience. Dark Souls is a fairly difficult game, but it's also just fair. Usually. Pressing a button in Dark Souls queues up an animation. Once the animation queues up, you are stuck doing that animation for a short period of time. These are the times you are going to get hit the most, whether you misread an opportunity for a hit, drink, roll, whatever, or entered a misinput. It may seem intimidating, but you start to realize that this game is kind of slow. Like, look at this big goofer. I could spoil this one because he's like the tutorial boss. Now look at him swing. I just stood there and got fucking rocked. But why didn't you move, video voice, to prove a point? Now, look at this time. Check this out. You just saw my model phase through his hammer. But why? Iframes, short for invincibility frames, a short period of time where you are invincible. In Dark Souls, you get iframes right when you start your roll. You can also get behind him and he has to turn around and hit you, or is forced to use his only move that attacks behind him, which is a butt slam. The bread and butter of Dark Souls largely consists of timing and positioning, not twitch reflexes like some dudes would have you believe. A few bosses and enemies could test your limits, sure, but every enemy is all about timing, spacing, and memory. The definitive version of the game is called Prepare to Die Edition. I know I'm stealing this from someone, I just can't remember who, sorry, but that is not a warning. That is advice. You need to die every now and again to see that new animation, and wouldn't you know it, a lot of bosses have more than a couple of them. That's why this game is so notoriously hard. You can't transfer skills from another game into this one, like most shooters, because this one requires special attention to enemy-specific animations. To expect you to reflexively dodge every new enemy in the game is unreasonable, and is never asked of you. So hold this L, because L's stand for lessons, and you'll need it for next time. So, Contrary to the sheer number of tier lists talking about the correct weapons, stats, armors, spells, and countless guides out there for new players, if you were completely isolated from it all, you would still find a special class and build all on your own. Something more fun than the rest, something that makes sense to you. Even today, it feels like Dark Souls provides a surprising amount of customizability in how you play. Yeah, a lot of modern games include skill trees, different types of loot, abilities, and you probably already know that half of the time for big AAA titles, they don't feel like anything special. Like, who the fuck actually cares about getting an ability that gives you more farming in Far Cry? The game creates its own problem with how often you need to go collect things, and just for you to work to decrease the time doing it, that is an anti-video game. That is fucking cookie clicker with extra steps. Who cares about a dumbass ability in Cyberpunk that gives extra passive damage? It doesn't change the gameplay in any way. Most of it just doesn't fucking matter. There are stat increases when you level, this is true, but it is made interesting with the idea that once you level that stat, you're stuck with it. As you go through the game, you start seeing weapons and abilities that require a certain stat to use. Yeah, you could start a new character, or you could stick it out. You could make your own build work and eventually level out of this uncomfortable build you're rocking. My first playthrough, I had like absolutely no help. I tossed like 15 levels into resistance, and if you don't know, that is like one of the worst things you could level in Dark Souls 1. It gives you defense stats when you could just get better stat gains from just armor. You also get a few resistances just by leveling anything. Despite this, I still had a lot of fun going through the game, taking down dudes with my high strength build. I thought I was doing amazing with my character because I just stood away from watching videos and how to min-max it. You can use any weapon to endgame so long as it feels good to you in the moment. Trying to efficiently construct your character is more of a challenge for a second playthrough, if you feel like going another round. The point is, the RPG elements in Dark Souls may seem like a convoluted mess, but it is all there for the sake of a personal experience. If you just go with what feels right, you'll have a fairly unique and, I think, an unforgettable time. With the number of playstyles dependent on the player's mindset and skill level, the number of different weapons or spell combinations, the number of armor sets that may or may not interest someone, which affects the rolling speed, all of these choices lead to an experience that is in all likelihood far different from your friends. My buddy was, for some reason, enamored with the idea of having a bow in Dark Souls. This was so odd to me because I look at a bow and I think of a pea shooter, a niche but cute weapon with limited practicality in the game. But I saw him use those arrows, those items, those spells, dozens, maybe hundreds more times than I would ever think to, and he created a gameplay loop for himself which involved scouting out the enemy, sniping what he could, throwing a fireball as they approach, and cutting them down with his scimitar to finish them off. He even finished off a few bosses with the bow to keep his distance to make sure he won. The way he played created a different first-time experience with a wildly different strategy. It was just a different game to mine. Because of that careful and methodical approach, he found secret passages I didn't even know existed. Again, I don't want to show them to you because you might just remember them and take them without discovering them yourself, but just when I think the game is going to be tedious because of how he played, it rewards him for being different. It's like that with morality in the game too, which I adore. The game does not punish players for killing any NPC they see. Actually, they reward you for having the gall to do something different. Oh, did you kill the merchant because you're an asshole? You wanted to see what he would say when you attacked him because he had a funny voice?
Oh, thank you. You've gone mad, have you?
Or just wanted to see what he would drop? That's cool, dude. Take this super rare sword. Even the story itself was designed with a unique player experience in mind. You may have heard that Dark Souls games and their stories are far too convoluted for anyone to follow and reasonably appreciate, but I'd like to disagree with the sentiment. Not that it's convoluted or vague, it definitely is. I'd like to disagree with the idea that you can't appreciate the story because of this. Without spoiling anything, the game drip feeds you its story through brief bits of dialogue, visuals, item descriptions. Even the least perceptive players can see this town of aggressive and starving dogs, undead with outfits that are supposed to appear like thieves, and pyres burning in the street. You should be thinking, wow, this place fucking sucks, and that's all you really need to be feeling at that moment. If you want more complexity, it's all there for you to find, although it'll take some sleuthing and assuming on your part. Depending on what you do and where you go at what time in the story, you will meet people and progress several different storylines aside from your own. I don't want to spoil anything just in case, but how you view the story will be dependent on what characters you meet and how deep you get into their storylines. I will say though, It's possible on a first playthrough to just not meet a lot of side characters. I love this game head to toe, including the flaws. It's not perfect in any way. Regardless, this is my main case for why everyone should try out the game, but there's more about the game that I deeply adore and wanted to share. The presentation doesn't really fit the theme of Dark Souls is for everyone, so here it is at the end. The game is beautiful. The art direction is gorgeous, to a point where you could forget that you're looking at these charming low-poly environments and models while you're swept up in the moment. I don't want to spoil anything major, so you'll have to take my word, sadly, but the music ranges from grand and iconic to the more subtle moments between larger set pieces. You're listening to Firelink Shrine's theme right now, and if you've never been to Firelink Shrine, let me describe it. The warm colors of a fire draw your eyes to a cleared patch of land among the ruins around you. The weary and the ponderous gather in their own little corners before their next chosen journey. Into the distance you can see the cold and unfeeling walls of Anar Londo, the twisted depths below, plagued by all manner of grotesque, and paths leading to who knows where, guarded by the dead. Somehow this place feels like an island, a reprieve from everything arduous and unknown. A brief glimpse around the faces that find themselves here, and you take your seat at the familiar warmth of the fire.